Hi guys, this is Andrew, and you flip to get rich, and you cash flow to build wealth. The example of the property here is a cash flow property, and a lot of times when most people see mold, what do? They run. For us, mold is gold, and this is going to be an example of a property that has a lot of mold. And as we walk through the property, we need to decide: is this a property which is mold as gold, or is this a property which is mold, oh my god, run? So let's go inside, let's find out what are the negatives, what are the positives, more importantly, what can we get the property for, and is this a deal breaker or is this a money maker? So let's go on in. So hi guys, we're inside the house. It's a small little ranch house, barely 900 square feet, but this is a perfect rental property. It's a brick property, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and a basement. So clearly there was a lot of water. We're going to go in the basement here in a few minutes, but I want to kind of show you some of the important things. Now obviously all this stuff, if you notice, there's mold everywhere, and all of it needs to be redone. So this is really not much to look at, but it's just basically a lot of work. What I want to point out is this. Lori, if you want to pan kind of right there, where if you notice, right there, there's a solid line of mold everywhere. And then you see, like, literally the mold stops right there on the button. So what that tells you is this, for anybody who's an experienced investor, that part at one point had mold. Today it doesn't. Why? Why is it that the mold stops there? Because that's already been painted with mold stat. See, when you know what you're doing, you pick up on small things like that. What does that mean? You know that clearly there has been an issue downstairs. Now, the only thing you have to find out is downstairs, is this a foundational problem or is this a problem with the sump pump? A lot of times people will run. Now, for people who don't know what they're doing, you look at a house like this, it will be very expensive for you to fix. But when you know what you're doing, guess what? This is a fixable problem. Now, the question is, are the numbers there for you or I to fix it? And we're going to talk about this after we get back to the office as to what the numbers are on this property. But here, I just want to kind of point out a few things. The hardwood floors has kind of what is called cupping. What that means is, because of the high moisture content in the property, they kind of curl up a little bit. But this is a problem which is fixable. The floors are kind of ugly looking, but there's no severe damage. Typically, if there's severe damage, you see like a wave pattern where the hardwood floor kind of rises up out of the actual floor. So this is not bad. The bedrooms, Lori, as you kind of go through, most people will get a chance to see is that they're not bad. They're just blocked, which is what we want. So no mold around here. The other place to check for mold typically is always going to be in the corners. Why in the corners? Because mold will grow anywhere there is 60% humidity and there is a cellulose content. So anything that has drywall, anything that is wood, if there's no cellulose, then there's going to be no mold. So that's something to keep in mind. If you guys look at this room, this is pretty clean. Now that doesn't mean just because there's no visible mold, doesn't mean there's no mold spores here. So when the treatment is done, the whole house will be fogged and it needs to be redone properly. But that's kind of what it is. So let's kind of make our way down. And as we get down there, when we do some of the basement shots, you guys will see some of the bigger challenges as we get in the basement. And I wish you could just kind of take in a deep, long breath. And really, that smell that you have when it rains a lot, it hasn't rained in a long time, there's this kind of overwhelming sense. When it rains, it's kind of a nice smell. This is basically moldy, musty smell, so you don't want to be in the basement for too long. And ideally, we should be wearing a N95 mask. We're not, we're being silly, but I wanted to quickly point out some of the things. Typically, you'll see signs of mold. Obviously here, there's mold kind of all over here. So this is something important to look at. Lori, if you kind of take a shot here, a lot of times, if you notice this is typically, people say, well, this is black mold, this is other mold, this is other mold. Which one is more dangerous, not dangerous? It's mold, basically, if you have any breathing problems, is not good for you. For anybody, mold is not good. So disturbing it and kind of living in that environment is not good. So this all needs to be fumigated, disposed of properly. And if you notice that the mold kind of stops visually here. There's still mold here, but people will think, well, oh my God, the water line was here. No, the water line wasn't here. There's a clear line here. What that means is that the water typically, the absorption rate of drywall is going to be about 2 feet. What does that mean is that the water was somewhere here and the water and the drywall kept soaking up more and more water. That's why there's a heavy amount of mold that grew. So there was probably about 12 inches or so worth of water. Now all these couches, everything pretty much was soaking wet at one point because the sump pump failed. So that's because we think the sump pump failed. So that's important to find out. And if you're in a house like this, right, how do you know, is this a problem you should fix, or is there a bigger problem? Is there a foundation problem? So that's going to be something that we will discuss. But this is a property that is for one of our Gold Mastery students. So I wanted to make sure and come and look at it for them. So this happens to be a property that is Faraz's property. And I wanted to make sure that she was not making a mistake. So we'll talk about what the numbers are and how do you turn a property that might be a property that you run from to a property that you run to. So we'll find out if this is that property, but I'm glad you guys were along for the journey. So let's find out if this, mold is really gold.